So I have to start with a disclaimer. Originally Israeli, I'm a feminist man, and I am a social activist, and I have respect for the things that you do on so many levels that I don't even know where to start. But please help me with your questions on Slido, because I have a bunch of my own. Let me start by the end. Would you do it again? Would you go again to on the same mission?
Oh, absolutely, in a heartbeat. Yes.
And I hear also that you don't like the term space tourist.
Yes, I don't like it because it oversimplifies what it takes to actually go to space, especially to do an orbital flight. I spent about a year training in Russia to prepare just like any other astronaut, and so that's why I don't like the word tourist. I tell people, if someone climbs Mount Everest, do you call them the Everest tourist? So this is about
Fair
the
enough.
same. Yeah.
And I also heard you say how when you were in space, seeing the planet for the first time, seeing that there are no borders, something clicked in your mind, and it's a message that you hear from different astronauts, that often they speak about big philosophical questions, whether it's climate change or peace on the planet. Can you tell me about that moment? Did it really is it the ideas that you brought to space that were reinforced there, or was it something about seeing it for the first time that triggered that realization that actually all these borders are nonsense?
A very good question. So as someone who loves space, I had seen pictures of Earth from space all the time. My screensaver was a picture of Earth from space. But when you see it with your own eyes, I think it sort of solidifies it in a different way. It makes it real. And when I looked at our planet, the first thing I sensed was, you know, this energy of life, actually, this warmth from this, coming from it. And I was in the capsule, and I couldn't really feel it, but it was just the sense I was getting. And it was very emotional. I was crying and laughing at the same time. But, you know, when you look at our planet and the background is complete dark space, you all of a sudden realize that this is your home.
No.
This is your home. This is not, you know, your country is not your home. The planet is your home. So it shifts your perspective.
So let me rephrase it a little bit. Do you think the same effect would happen to other people? If I had a
Absolutely.
very nationalistic approach to life and you sent me to space, do you think I would have that effect of saying,
Absolutely, absolutely, because I have flown with very, you know, patriotic, a lot of people from Army or Navy who are very attached to the country. It doesn't changes your identification with your country and your love for your country. It just changes the fact that humanity as a whole is the species that lives on this one planet. And this one planet is what we need to care for. Now, we can identify with one part of it, but solving problems requires collaboration.
So I have a suggestion. I come from the West Bank. Can we send both Israelis and Palestinians to space and just tell them to stay there until you figure out a solution and don't come back until then? And once you realize that this is all nonsense, then you're welcome to come back to this Earth.
That sounds
It
perfect.
sounds to me like it's a very educational experience to go to space and suddenly you understand that in the end you need to fight for more important things.
Oh, I agree with you. I always said that UN should have, or G20 should take their summit up to space station, and they will come up with a lot of different policies that will make this world a better place for all of us, because completely gives you a different perspective on how you look at the world.
And are you optimistic that the access to space tourism would become more popular? Do you think that, because today, let's face it, it's really happy few who can do it. It's not only financial. I mean, you know better than I do. It's probably also physical. It's about being fit and able to go to space. So do you think we can reach the point where we can send people on these pedagogic excursions to space to understand what this is all about?
So I believe that space will become more and more accessible and affordable for everyone. Not everyone would want to go to space, and not everyone would want to do an orbital flight. That's part of the reason I'm excited about suborbital flights that was enabled by the Ansari X Prize, because it gives you sort of like a 5-minute in space where you get a snapshot. You have the feeling, you can see it, and then you don't have to go through a year of training like I did. So there's different levels of experiences as a group.
So what's your prediction? When do you think we could start talking in those terms?
So I think...
Will my children be able to buy a ticket to space? They're born next month, so.
Okay, so you can buy a ticket to space now. About 500 people already bought tickets on Virgin, and they're going to be flying end of this year. So it's
How much
already.
is it today?
Right now is around $200,000, but over
And that will give
time-
them how much time in space?
The flight itself is about 2 hours, but gives them 5 minutes of weightlessness.
And do you expect the prices would...
The prices will definitely come down because the cost is not that much, and it's just like, you know, the first Concorde seats were a lot more expensive, and I believe that it will be in the sub 10,000.
So I have some questions on Slido asking if you would go to Mars. And I also moderated yesterday on Stage X downstairs a panel on where I had a lot of space, but also on Mars and about the different questions of sustaining life on Mars. Would you be even tempted to go? That's a long way from home. You don't get the view of Earth from there. Then you have to really have a picture of Earth.
Yeah, so I'm one of those people who would love to live in space. I would love to go to Mars, but I would love to continue on going and not just stay
Mars
in
is not far enough.
Not far enough, not far enough.
I see. So let's talk about the prize. So you explained that you started with the mission of going twice to space, and then you started expanding, and you also mentioned your sensitivity and dedication to empowering girls. So, but now there's a whole range of causes that the prize can support. So how do you make those choices of which of the most important topics for you to, now that you have the leverage and the means to push certain topics that are close to your heart, that's like a dream for activists, how do you pick those topics? What are the main ones for you?
So we have 7 domains, and we try to have at least one active prize in each domain.
So what are the 7 again?
So we have education, energy, environment, mobility or transportation, health and longevity, food and agriculture. In each domain we launch different prizes, and we're creating roadmaps for each one that will identify sort of the breakthroughs needed to create a better future in each of these domains 20, 30 years from now. And we try through competition bring those breakthroughs, to come to reality sooner than later.
And you did not mention women as such. Is that because it's a horizontal thing that you think should be empowered in each and every of the 7, or?
I believe so. I want women involved in 2 ways. One is I want women innovators, women scientists, women engineers to actually build solutions. As exponential technologies are being developed every day, I feel the voice of women is missing in helping direct these technologies towards solving problems.
So how do we get there?
You have to start when girls are very young in school, elementary school, giving them role models, creating a way for them to see the opportunities, the career choices, how they can use science and technology in a way that will speak to them. And we don't do a good job of that at the early age, so we see a lot of young girls dropping out and not making a choice to go to science and technology fields.
And I suppose that when you're talking about education of girls now, you're thinking about where you live now in the States. And I find it interesting because I saw in some interviews with you that you talk about the role of girls and women in the Middle East, where you're originally from. And I was actually expecting you to start with that region and tell you, well, here in the West, it's not like it's ideal either. We have serious problems. We have a man in the White House now who's an outspoken misogynist, and it's not like, parts of the world are in the Middle Ages and here everything is lovely. We have a long way to go. So are you active now in different parts of the world, trying to fit into different cultures and see how to empower women in different ways?
I am a global citizen, and I travel quite a lot and try to activate women around the globe toward different means. So some of it is through speaking, some of it through being part of networks of women to help women entrepreneurs around the globe, and some of it is through X Prize and trying to get more women from around the globe to be part of the teams and innovators who create solutions. Some of our private prizes directly benefit women. So for example, we had a Women's Safety X Prize, which we tested in India. So in different ways, I try to make sure that we have a gender focus in each of our domains and in each of our activities and in my personal work.
And to go back to your country of origin, and you stop me if I'm now touching something very sensitive, I read something that there was controversy about you wanting to wear the Iranian flag when you went to space, and you were asked not to, and then you found creative ways of showing the colors without the flag. Do you want to tell us about this? Why was it important for you to begin with, to go back to the country that in the end you fled? I'm sure you have nostalgia for your country that you left, but in the end you left in tragic circumstances.
Yeah.
And yet, when you were already, I'm assuming, an American citizen going to space, there was that feeling of wanting to wear the Iranian flag.
Yeah. So I always separate the citizens of a country from the government of that country, because not every country is a democratic country, and the government usually doesn't always represent the people. And I grew up in Iran, and I think Iranians are amazing, wonderful people, highly educated. 60% of university students are women in Iran. And a lot of the Iranians are entrepreneurs, especially women in Iran, because they find it hard to work in large
for you, the flag was more the people and the memories.
It was about
and
the people. And it was the fact that media always paints such a negative portrait of Iran, and people associate that negative image with the people. So I wanted to show them a completely different picture of an Iranian woman. And that's why I wore the flag, to identify with them. And the fact that Iranians in Iran actually found that so refreshing. And after all these negative news, there was something positive associated with the word Iran, made them really feel proud, and always they tell me they were happy to see that.
But this explanation that it's not about the government but about the culture and the people didn't fly, because you were still asked not to wear the flag?
I was asked, but I did.
You did wear the flag?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I thought the flag itself was not on your...
So the flag on my spacesuit was on the patch, and they wanted me to remove it. So there was the three colors, in the green, white, and red.
So you basically cheated them.
Yes, I told them to just white out the green, and it will be just white and red. It will be the same colors of the American flag. But then I had things with the flag on space station already, which I had sent ahead of time. So I wore it on space station, and no one could tell me anything. No one could reach me up there.
You're already too far away.
Exactly.
We have a question which also, I don't know how many of you were on Stage X yesterday, but we also touched a little bit about the role of governments in space exploration. We had entire panels yesterday about the transition from a world where it's mostly national agencies to now more and more private entrepreneurs, and you mentioned a little bit in the context of tourism, but also we spoke about low orbit satellites and new technological solutions. So the question is, what is the role of governments? And well, they asked about space exploration, but I guess we can take it both for business services here on Earth and for space explorations.
Very good question. So the whole premise of why we launched the Ansari X Prize was to really democratize access to space and bring private sector into it. Because for 50 years, not much was done by the governments. We believe that's very, very important, because space can play a big role in solving humanity's problem. But if we
give me examples, maybe, just to understand.
Yeah. So, for example, satellite imagery now is a big part of a lot of industries. It helps us with understanding what's happening to our planet. It's being used for sensing technology, for many things. In the past, you look at our communication system, GPS system, banking system, entertainment system, all relies on space technologies. Research and development has resulted in new materials, new medicine, all sorts of things that comes from space technology benefits us. In future, that can even accelerate more, but the biggest issue was the cost to space was very high. Some of the technologies that I particularly think will flourish in the future is manufacturing in space, taking our cloud into space, because it uses power and it requires cooling, and you have solar
that I heard
energy.
for the first time now. Taking the cloud,
it's my idea. I'm patenting it.
I might steal it, huh? Wait, so
steal it.
Taking the servers,
So,
the computer servers, sending them into space.
Yeah, put the servers in space. It's cold, and you have plenty of sun, and you put solar panels there.
So you were watching
cheaper,
the Earth. You were not just thinking about global peace. You were thinking about business. You're like, okay, here I can bring my farm. So on this planet, I'm just going to put this. Here I put that.
If you want private sector to flourish, you have to have a business case. And that's going to your question. Government plays a role when you can't make a business case out of it. You know, extrasolar exploration of other planets outside of solar system, gravitational wave research, solar research, all these things that are really pure research and you don't have a business case for them, that's where government can
But space
play a
exploration,
role.
there's a business case?
Space exploration, I just gave you all these examples.
No, wait,
of,
you told me how to make use here on the planet. The exploration I'm talking about,
oh, just to go, so
Yeah.
exploration.
exploration then if I understand it correctly, still would be in the hands of government.
Right, so, well, yes and no, because a lot of technologies are enabling us to create permanent, you know, settlements, for example, on the moon. There's a company right now building a private space station. So a lot of these locations can be used for research manufacturing. And for example, there's a whole document report on lunar economy, on using material on the surface of the moon that can be valuable and become a source of, for example, providing energy or other material for our planet. So everything at the end is about helping humanity in some ways, but it can be done on another surface of the moon, for example, or Mars, or in a space, or bring it back all the way to Earth to help us here.
So as an entrepreneur and as someone who's been to space and understands the implications, you're not concerned by some of the ethical questions of private companies doing exploration?
I'm more worried about ethical questions of government space exploration because everyone wants to militarize space and use it for purposes of war. So I much rather put private companies up there because, you know, when you're trying to make business case out of it, you can control it better than you know, opening it up just to governments and letting them put military weapons up there.
So we're nearing the end, but there was one question that I kept aside, which is what's next for you in the future? You've done so much, you've accomplished so much. What's left?
So 6 months ago, I was asking myself the same question, and the answer I came up with is I need to go someplace where I can bring my knowledge of technology, my experiences, and my desire to make this world better in one place. And that's
Say it again, where you bring your skills?
My skills as an entrepreneur and in technology field, my desire to make this world better, and my belief in that these technologies can transform the world in a better way in one place.
Which is?
X Prize Foundation. That's why I joined as a CEO, and I look at the foundation as a platform to really get innovators and the crowd out there to come together and give them specific targets, frame problems in a very clear fashion, and put a prize on it, and then you can get the whole world to solve the problems for you.
So I'm reassured that you're not about to retire anytime soon. Please continue doing. Now you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah, retire?
There's so many things I need to do. I need to solve humanity's problems. How can I retire right now? Before I move to Mars.
Absolutely.
Well, this was an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for joining us here.
My pleasure.
Please continue what you're doing. We need more people like you.
Thank you.